What is going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another champion spotlight video talking about our second brand new shadowkin champion, Jintoro. Here we have a legendary attack based champion. I'm really excited to go over this guy because I think he has some amazing new animations and abilities that have been added to this game. So let's go ahead, start this off and talk about this champion's aesthetics. Alright guys, so as we can see here, this champion looks like an absolute monster. He has an awesome sword here. He's got his awesome blue flaming crown with kind of antlers on it. He's got the long hair in the back. He really picks up the essence of the samurai with this champion here. So this was something that I was really looking forward to when this new faction of the shadowkin actually came out. And I'm really glad we get to see the fine plarium art department really put their talents to the test here and give us a good showing on what to expect for this faction coming forward with future releases of the champion. Now that we've gone over that, let's go over this champion's skills, his animations, and see what they have to offer you. Alright, so starting off with Jintoro, we do have increases ally attack in all battles by 29%, which is awesome for a champion like this. He is going to do a ton of damage, so let's go ahead and see what he has to offer here. The first skill we do have is going to be Soul Drinker. This is an A1 ability, grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Let's go ahead, use this on a champion and see what we get. Okay, a really cool slash here. I'm loving his sword, how big it is. This guy just looks absolutely mean. Let's move on to his A2 ability, Blood Freeze. This is a 3-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy, steals 100% of the target's turn meter, decreases the cooldown of Oni's Rage, which is going to be the A3 by 1 turn if the target is immune to turn meter reduction effects. So it's not going to apply to a lot of things in the game, but there are certain dungeons like Dragon, as well as the clan boss, where this will always work to his benefit. So let's go ahead and see what Blood Freeze looks like. Okay, so that is one of the coolest things that I have seen in this game. We have like a shadow duplicate of this guy popping out of his body, giving the enemy a slash, then returning. That's really cool. I'm glad they added this, and this is quickly becoming one of my favorite champions in this game. Let's move on to the A3. Oni's Rage. This is what has their cooldown reduced based on that A2. This is a 3-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy, places a defense down and weaken buff for 2 turns. This is very strong. It is booked to 100% chance of landing when it's fully booked. Now here's the cool part. We'll attack 5 times instead of 1 time on every 4th use of this skill against the same target in 1 round. So we're going to find out very quickly that he hits so hard that this is going to be very hard to proc unless you are in progression using kind of lower tier gear. However, the main use for this, and I will show you this later, is going to be in the clan boss, and now he can ramp up to insane amounts of damage. So let's go ahead, use Oni's Rage, and see what this animation looks like. Okay, we have a nice slash there with the blue shockwave effect. After that, let's go ahead and just use this A2 since we did get an extra turn here from Relentless. This is still one of the coolest things I think they've added to the game as far as that ability there. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is the passive here. All turn meter fail effects are increased by 50% when used on this champion. This is going to be huge in many parts of the game. It allows you to build him a lot slower than your average champion, maybe letting you use attack percent boots instead of speed boots on your champions, depending on the type of comps you are using this champion in, or whatever dungeon, arena content, or clan boss team you are making. Let's go ahead and throw this on auto, and the only thing that I would complain about is they made his animations a bit too quick. As you can see, we're on 1 time speed, and it's very hard to see, especially that shadow strike that we just saw on the screen there. Now really quickly, I'm going to move it to 2 times speed here. You're going to see him just flying across the screen, just dominating, and it's really hard to catch. I'm sure if I just showed you this in 2 times speed, you would never know that the clone that comes out of this guy that's blue was actually a copy of the character model itself. So now that we've gone over this, let's go ahead and take a look at how I would gear him, go over the gearing recommendations so you can see where he can help you and kind of give you a guideline on how to build this champion. Alright guys, so as we just saw, this guy screams, I need to do damage. Now you will have to decide, is the defense down and weaken on the single target ability going to be worth it for you? Depending on your answer is going to change a lot of things for you, so I'm going to show you two builds. The first build is going to be the accuracy based one, the second build is going to be the damage build. So let's go ahead and start with the accuracy based build. I do recommend an accuracy banner with speed and attack percent, crit damage necklace with flat attack and accuracy. Moving on to the ring, attack ring with attack percent substats. The gloves should be crit damage with crit rate. If your gear isn't that good, you can go crit rate with crit damage. For the chest piece, you can go accuracy on the chest piece or attack percent if you have enough accuracy for whatever content you're doing. For the boots, I do recommend speed boots despite him having a increase to his turn meter. The only time I wouldn't recommend speed boots is if your champion will always go after any AoE defense down or AoE weaken being applied on your team after the turn meter boosters get a turn. If you have an Arbiter and you're boosting your team and Jintoro is going before a War Maiden or a Dracomorph or a Lydia, it's really going to be counterproductive to what you're trying to do. That's why I do recommend, before making any drastic changes in your gear, since silver is definitely going to be an issue in this game, you really look to see if whether or not you want speed boots or attack percent boots. As far as the weapon, I would focus on filling out the remaining crit rate. Whether you have crit rate gloves or crit damage gloves, the same will apply to the helmet. However, I recommend filling out speed, accuracy, and attack percent. And finally, moving on to the shield, crit rate and crit damage are going to be the main focuses for the shield. Now we're going to move on to the second build that we talked about here, which is going to be the damage based build for Jintoro. This is going to be pure damage as much as you can get. So with that being said, assumingly, attack banner with attack percent, crit damage necklace with flat attack in the substats, attack ring with attack percent. You want crit damage gloves with crit rate substats, attack percent chest with crit rate substats, speed boots or attack boots with crit rate and crit damage substats. For the weapon and helmet, you're going to want attack percent, crit rate as well as crit damage. And finally, for the shield, you want to fill out the remaining crit rate and crit damage on this champion. That's going to make this guy an absolute monster in all content. He's going to fly through the waves without a problem, one-shotting pretty much everything this game has to offer. Now let's move on to the Masteries, what I picked personally. This is going to be more for a damaging one-shot build while focusing on some accuracy. As you can see, we have a pretty standard Helm Smasher tree. I did elect to go with Cycle of Violence because I do like him resetting his cooldowns, making sure he's using that A2 and A3 as often as possible. Then as we can see, I did go the support tree, giving him Evil Eye, Master Hexer, and finally Arcane Celerity, really emphasizing on the debuffs he has to place and him getting turn meter based on the debuffs actually expiring on these champions. If you didn't want to go the debuff route, you could definitely fill in the defense tree, go all the way to the counterattack, mastery, retribution, and end it off there. Now let's go ahead and talk about this champion's stats and how I geared him. So this champion's base stats, he has 15,360 base health, 1,487 base attack, not the craziest attack, but definitely on the high side. His health is a bit low. We have 1,068 defense, not crazy high, not crazy low, so right in between. We have 102 speed, which is definitely on the generous side of the threshold. 15% crit rate, 63 crit damage, 30 resist, and finally 10 accuracy. As we can see here, I did elect to give him Relentless gear and a Cruel gear set because I felt that would fit the best for the content, helping him reset his cooldowns, get as many turns as possible since he is single target, and you do want to make sure he's clearing the waves if that's going to be the role you want to use this guy for. However, for me personally, I think he looks cool enough where I'm just going to use him in as many places as possible, simply based on how cool his animations are and how hard he hits. So going over his total stats, I gave him 30,000 health, 5,100 attack, 2,000 defense, 188 speed, 100% crit rate, of course, 261 crit damage, and 264 accuracy. And the first place I want to show this guy off is going to be in the Dragon Run, so we can kind of see how much damage he's going to do overall. I've been paired with 4 supports here because I want to make sure he's doing most of the work as far as damage goes, but I also want to make sure that the dragon doesn't get that inhale effect if things don't go properly, and we are going to be using his increase attack in all battles aura for this since it's very strong in dungeons. Let's go ahead, see what happens here, see how much damage we can do against these teams. I'll run on 2 times speed first, and then I'll slow it down to 1 time speed so we can get a full view of his masteries. So 166,000, he keeps getting extra turns, 136,000 here. And one main thing that I did mention before, with his speed where it's at, I did make sure that Liddy was always going first, making sure that defense down and weaken is going to be on this champion. And of course, he's going to be kind of a glass cannon, so you're going to want some type of reviver unless you're focusing on HP and defense, but I do think it would be a waste. And once again, this guy just has amazing animations, even though they are a bit too fast in my opinion. This is 1-time speed. Let's see how we do here. We're doing decent hits. He does have accuracy on him, so that's one thing to keep in mind. This isn't full damage build for this champion here. As we saw, he did apply that defense down and weaken single target on that champion. It's going to make more sense when I show him in my next showcase ability, but for now we're just going to have to deal with not showing the most damage he can do. However, it is definitely respectable, the numbers we are currently seeing here. Alright, so we made it to the dragon. Let's see how much damage our Jintoro can actually do against this stage 20 run. We have the defense on weaken being applied, and we're going to watch him. It's unfortunate we can't see. Let's see if we can turn the camera a bit to get a better angle on his abilities here. Like I said, they are so fast and he has so much going on for him. It's going to be really hard to capture all of his abilities, but as we can see from the numbers on the screen, he's doing a solid amount of damage overall. The only problem I did have that was mentioned before with his abilities is it's going to be very rare, unless you're running a team with 4 support champions like I am, to see him take advantage and use his A3 ability to get those extra hits. If you do remember, every 4th hit on the same target using that A3, he's going to attack multiple times in a row. It looks really cool. It's an awesome flurry of attacks. Once again, the animation is extremely fast even at 1-time speed. I'm going to show you that in the clan boss, but if your gear isn't on the lower side of quality, it's unlikely you're going to see that in any type of dungeon unless you get insanely lucky with reflex gear or relentless gear with extra procs. So his damage is ramping. This time is rather slow because once again we're running 4 support champions. We had it in 1-time speed for a while. But let's just go ahead, even though I'm in front of it now. Let's look at his total damage here. We have 2.128 million damage here. That's insane for a champion like this. Battle did 1 million having poisons. So this guy does a ton of damage. He can be an awesome glass cannon damage dealer for you, especially having that really strong attack aura for all allies in battles. On top of dungeons, even though I didn't use attack up in the last dungeon, I did have Bad L increasing his damage. Now let's see what we can do in an arena battle. We are against 3 champions here, but I really want to highlight and focus on what Jintoro can do damage wise, especially with his scaling. So let's go ahead, give this Necrit team a shot. With all of the survivability Necrit and Duchess actually provide the team, let's go ahead and try to strip these buffs, CC the champions here. Now we're going to get this attack up buff, possibly True Fear. Okay, we did get the True Fear. Let's go ahead and defense down these champions and see how hard the A2 does against a Duchess here, even though we have, once again, accuracy gear on this champion. We got an extra turn. We were able to easily one-shot. Let's go ahead and use Blood Freeze on Gergo the Augur here and see how much damage actually is shared and done to Necrit as well. So easy one shot, 30,000 damage done to this champion. Let's go ahead, put this on 1-time speed, put it on auto, and watch him go again. As we just saw there, the turn meter increase made our Jintoro go first on the whole team. We have a very fast Yoshi at 276 speed. We have a fast Madame Seris, and Jintoro with his 188 speed, simply based off Kaimar's small turn meter boost, was able to lap both of those champions. So you do have to be careful in the arena, the same way I talked about having the defense down champion in the dungeons, Madame Seris being a crucial debuff stripper. You have to make sure Jintoro is slow enough that when a champion like Arbiter or Sifi or any turn meter boost you have does in fact use the effect, he's not going in front of your debuffers and buff strippers on your team, or else you're going to run into a huge problem down the line. Alright guys, so the final place I want to talk about is going to be the clan boss, where I can showcase Jintoro's A3 ability, showing the successive hits once it ramps up. Unfortunately, haven't figured out the speeds for Bat Eater. He would be amazing in a Bat Eater team. However, it's really hard without a calculator since he's such a new champion to work him into a Bat Eater. I've gotten very close with it slowly desyncing throughout many turns, but I'll show you, and we'll wait until we hit that mark for his A3 ability here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up the same as a normal Bad Eater team, and we'll kind of watch how the turn meter effect is going to throw off our champion and the rest of the team slowly. But what we're really looking for here is that amazing pop-off to happen where he starts using all of his attacks. It's really fun to watch, and it's something that would actually keep me at my computer instead of walking away. So this is what we're looking for. We'll attack 5 times instead of 1 in every 4th use of this skill. So we're going to use the first one here. He also has accuracy, which is what I originally built him for. So we decreased the cooldown already. Has amazing synergy with Painkeeper, who's going to also be reducing the cooldown of his A3 ability, making sure he's using it as much as possible. We'll put this on 2 times speed, and I'll do my best to count how many times he's actually using the ability. So he's only used it once so far. What I'm probably going to do is look ahead, watch his damage scale. If you did run him in a team like this, everyone would be in poison sets to maximize their potential in the clan boss, since he doesn't have it. So that's going to be the second time I used it. As you can see there, he did do 93,000 damage, which is going to ramp up as he keeps using his abilities over and over again. One thing to note, if you were going to use him in the clan boss, obviously he would be taking War Master. That's another key point to consider here. But as we just saw there, Painkeeper is going to have very strong synergy with this champion, since she's also reducing the cooldown of this champion's A3, making sure he's going to use that ramped up A3 ability with the amazing damage much more frequent if this actually works in an unkillable team. Now, what unkillable teams will this work right away? Any team that doesn't have a turn meter increase. So if you're just using a champion that increases the speed in a 2-to-1 ratio, it's going to work fine. However, if you want to use this, maybe Deadwood Jedi is going to come up with some type of team to use this guy in. Maybe he isn't. I know he's very busy, and I know last time I mentioned something about a champion, people were pestering him, so let the guy be. If he wants to make it, he will. If he doesn't, okay, so as we just saw there, he just popped off. That was amazing. Tons of slashes in a row, tons of damage. That's what I'm talking about with ramping here. We're almost at 1,000,000 damage per turn here, slightly off. We have desynced from this being a 2-to-1 ratio, so this damage overall is going to be very impressive. Doing over 6 million damage, very close to 7 million damage on turn count 7. Like I was just saying, Jintoro just died there. It's unfortunate to see. Don't pester Deadwood Jedi. If he feels like making a video and figuring out the speed tunes, or if someone else in the community wants to, they definitely can. Maybe I will actually stop being lazy and wait for him to go live into the calculator, spend a couple hours and figure out the exact speed tune you would need for a Bad Eater. I know personally I would probably run a team with Jintoro in it. Even though I have a Dracomorph, I actually have 2 Dracomorphs, and Bellinor and all those other champions you can in fact use. He is just such a cool champion. I do want to use him everywhere I possibly can. But getting back to my main point, Mashal he's going to work fine with. You lose the attack up from Seeker, so that's something to consider, but Mashal will work fine. The original team that I did show on YouTube a long time ago, where I used Skull Crusher and Rush Card the Tower, that unkillable team that only works on Void Affinity, unless you add a Doom Priest, is going to be very strong. Doom Priest does have attack up. You can also use a Dracomorph with Jintoro, focusing strictly on damage, so that's definitely a cool team you could probably 1-key with. I did show a 1-key without a 2-to-1 ratio with that team when Ultra Nightmare first came out, so maybe that's something I'll revisit for a later on video if I can pull off a 1-key with Jintoro and show you how much damage he can actually do with that A3 ramping up, doing that massive amounts of hits on it, since in my opinion when Plarium released this, I think they wanted that successive hits to actually be a thing for Clan Boss, since like I've mentioned and I've showed you in this video, nothing in this game is really surviving long enough for Jintoro to hit 5 times or 4 times in a row to get that additional effect out of that A3. Alright guys, outside of the dungeons and the arena where the affinity does make sense, we talked about Clan Boss. He's probably going to be very strong in faction wars. He's a very hard-hitting champion, and we're going to have to see what the stage 21 boss for faction wars actually looks like when it's released. If it's one of the harder bosses that require a damage check once we get to the end, Jintoro is going to be very valuable in that sense. If it's another boss, we're going to have to wait and see how useful he's going to be, but overall if you pull him, I would be pretty hyped either way because I think he's going to be very valuable in faction wars. As far as Doom Tower goes, if you need a one-shot champion, him being a glass cannon isn't ideal for Doom Tower unless you have solid champions. Now, one thing to consider is the Nether Spider. Alright guys, so here we are in the Nether Spider. This is a perfect example of what works and what may not work. So he's going to be strong affinity for the Nether Spider. He's paired with Godseeker Iniri, Sanguinia, Doom Priest, and finally Melga. So in this team already, I've pretty much had this set up to always have 4 supports and a damage dealer. My original damage dealer was Septimus for that enemy max health ability. It did take a while, but it always worked. This is somewhere where you can use Jintoro to your advantage. Since this guy's going to live for a while, we're going to be able to watch him ramp up. So let's kind of just throw this on auto and see if this team can survive here. We do have accuracy on this guy, so he is going to apply the defense down and weaken. He has extra turns, so he's going to be going a ton of times over and over again. We just have to make sure he doesn't kill himself, even though we do have 2 revivers on this team. Let's go ahead and see how this plays out and see if we can catch his multi-hit ability on this champion. Sanguinia, for those of you who don't know already, is very strong for this boss. She has so many abilities that clear all of the debuffs. And just in case this is his ramp up, okay, it's not just yet, but he is doing a solid amount of damage. This is also going to take quite some time when going through the scope of things here, but the fact that Godseeker Iniri has direct synergy with reducing cooldowns when a champion dies, the most likely champion to die is in fact going to be Jintoro. So that is also something to consider as well. All we have to do is make sure that all of our champions don't die here to this hit. Okay, enough of them survived. We have the revive there, beautiful. This is why you want to bring so many champions. We did get the revive from Godseeker there and reducing all of the cooldowns of this champion. Now I'm not sure if this is going to reset what happens with Jintoro in his A3. If he dies, does it actually reset him from getting his successive attacks and hits? That's going to be something to consider and to watch overall. But his damage is going to slowly ramp up here, and he's going to be able to get the job done. Now you probably would want War Master on this guy to make sure he's doing the most possible damage, and outside of that you want the speed a bit higher on all of these champions here to make sure they're getting in all of their cooldowns. Alright guys, so outside of those synergies, that's where you can use this champion to your advantage and throughout this game for your progression. Now that is going to conclude my video on the new champion spotlight for Jintoro from the Shadowkin faction. Let me know what you guys think. Where else are you going to use him? What other synergies have you found after watching this video that you might possibly be interested in using him, or where you plan on, or what different ways you think you can build this champion to your success? Let me know in the comments, and as always guys, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next champion spotlight video for the Shadowkin faction.